Reading from the Bṛhad-bhāgavatāmṛta, Book 1, Chapter 7, Text 85. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Tato nyābhiś devībhir. Etad evānumoditam. Sātrājitī paraṁ māna. Gehaṁ tad-asahāviśat. Uddhava said, the other queens all agreed. Only Satya, bhāmā, Sātrājitī, unable to tolerate those words, entered her chamber of anger. Om timirandasya gananjana shalakaya taksur unmulatam yena tasmai Shri Gurave namaha. Sri Chaitanya mano bhishtam stapitam yena bhutale swayam rupa kadamayam dadati sa padantikam vancha kalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhu bhayevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So greetings from Boca Raton, Florida. I'm at the house of my good friend, and I think our good friend, Lakshmi Nrsimha, a stalwart disciple of Prabhupada, and his wife, Gokula Priya, exceptional person, a medical doctor, a PhD, Ayurvedic doctor, and also a very dedicated disciple of His Holiness Srila Dhanurdhara Swami. And today we'll have a very nice program. They're doing very nice preaching. There'll be about 40 people here. Mostly from the yoga world, but a variety, even God brothers, different people. Anyway, we're really getting now to the juice of this incredible Rasa Shastra, trying to communicate to us Braja Bhakti, the feelings of the residents of Vrindavan for Krishna. And at the same time, a book, because this is Narada's search for the topmost recipient of Krishna's mercy. Also a book that is meant to present this tattva, this subject, this science of the exalted nature of the residents of Vrindavan, and specifically the gopis. That's the essence of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission. I often quote this verse by Srila, I think it's Raghunath Das Goswami, Anarpita Charim Charat Karunaya Vatirna Kalo Samarpyatum Unatoj Vala Rasam Swabhakti Swayam. That the bhakti of God Himself for Himself, to experience Himself, Sri Bhakti Swayam, this unatojvala rasam, this brilliant rasa. And I've given seminars and I've spoken this class many times about the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the genius of Sanatana Goswami in presenting it. So many ways he's presenting it. First, in the Search of Narada Muni, where the hierarchy of bhakti is presented. And it's that beautiful conception of perfect, more perfect, and most perfect. Just like think of the most loving mother for her child. Her love is perfect. Her love is pure. But the child may have a romance that's more absorbing. But that doesn't lessen or denigrate the love of the mother in any way. So although there are gradations, it's basically just different flavors. And some flavors have more freedom, if I would call it that. Even sometimes these words don't apply. They have freedom. For example, in reverence, you're restricted by obligation and duty, as opposed to friendship. But the obligation and duty is part of that flavor, even though it gives it less freedom and force. Yeah, I was recently, I took lunch here. This person invited me. He heard my classes last time. And, he was really asking me a lot of questions because he had a scientific mind. But I think the basic point that I was making to him is that it's reasonable that the absolute truth is inconceivable. And because it's inconceivable, it doesn't make it illogical. And I gave the example, and I thought of this example myself, that reality has one of two mutually exclusive choices. That reality, there was nothing existing, and then something's existing, or there was something that's always existing. So we say that reality is eternal. But can you understand that by your mind? That you go back and back and back and back, and it never ends? Because our experience is that things have a beginning. So that's inconceivable. And our experience is that something never comes out of nothing. But one must be true, and they're both inconceivable. So this gradation of love, each being perfect, but still having a gradation in terms of the spontaneity and freedom, it's on that realm. And we fully understand that realm, not just by logic. Logic can tell us the reasonability of it. But we can understand that realm by our experience and our faith. It's a jurisdiction that doesn't go by a material distance. I love that quote. It may have been by Hegel or some philosopher, where there is no circumference, the center is everywhere. So how do you go to that realm? It's a different dimension than our temporal spatial realm. And the vehicle is not mechanical, it's spiritual, it's faith. Anyway, what's happening now in this journey, in the hierarchy, and I think you've all been with me on this incredible journey of Narada Muni to find the topmost recipient of Krishna's mercy. And Krishna has just returned from New Vrindavan, where Lord Brahma brought him a replica Vrindavan outside of Dwarka, where he brought him to revive Krishna's catatonic, out of consciousness, near-death separation from the residents of Vrindavan. And Lord Brahma, with his intelligence, thought if we can bring him to the replica and convince him he's in Vrindavan, then he'll revive his consciousness, and then we can remind him where he is. And sure enough, we know the story. They brought him there, and there's all these beautiful wax figures of the different residents of Vrindavan, and it's done by the architect of the demigods, and it's so exact. And Krishna thinks he's kind of in Vrindavan. They even dressed him in his cowherd boy clothes. And then he goes, I think it's the Arabian Sea, and he thinks it's the Jamuna, and then he sees his palace, and then he gets confused, and then his brother Balaram explains to him, Yada, hidarmasya glanir bhavati bharata. This is a Jopi son, avyatma bhutanam ishvaro, that this is your duty. And then he's now back in the palace. Now, what happens in this kind of incredible, remember, a theme is the one point that connects everything else in a work, even though apparently unrelated. And the theme is the superiority of Braja Bhakti. And it's presented from so many angles, including that hierarchy of Narada Muni going from one devotee to another, to Uddhava, who's pointing to the Bṛhad-bhāgavatāmṛta. Now, one thing now is going to be presented that's very, very powerful. The superiority of the Bṛhad-bhāgavatāmṛta is going to be presented through the sentiments of the queens in a very, very interesting way. Because when Lord Brahma took Krishna to New Vrindavan, the queens weren't allowed to go there, because then Krishna would understand he's still in Dwarka, and they couldn't revive him from that separation from the Bṛhad-bhāgavatāmṛta. But because of their love for Krishna, they would give him permission to go, but hide behind the trees. So we saw, when they saw Krishna waking up and thinking he's in Vrindavan, and then seeing the statues of the gopis, but thinking they're in māna or anger, and they see the sweetness of his personality, the intimate side. I also make this point very many times, and I think it's relevant to what's happening here, is that we are our love, and our love is manifest in our relationships. So we actually are the personality of our relationships that are only revealed in love. And parts of ourselves are revealed to different people in different circumstances. And the most intimate sides of ourselves are not seen by others. So by analysis of us, or meeting us, or seeing us, it doesn't mean that someone knows us fully. Only by love do you know a person fully. And therefore we can only understand God and the ultimate reality by love. And we can understand that part of God that he chooses to show to us to satisfy our approach to him and our love to him. Ye yata mam prapadyante tam stataiva bhajam gehaṁ. As one surrenders, I reward accordingly. So the queens never saw that intimate romantic side. So there can be two reactions: that rascal, or our husband is even more beautiful. And because the queens are pure devotees, even Srimati Radharani, she competes with Chandravali to serve Krishna only because she thinks she can give him more pleasure. So this is the guiding principle. Anyābhilāshita shunyam jnana karma dhyānavritam anukulyena krishnanu Shilanam Bhakta Uttama. This is the guiding principle. So they became mad with ecstatic love for Krishna. In fact, Uddhava, who also from Dwarka couldn't, his confidential assistant couldn't go into New Vrindavan fully. He was also looking. He had to hold them back. And now Krishna returns to the palace, and Uddhava goes ahead. He tells the wives they're coming. And then you have this character of Padmavati, who is crooked-minded and envious. But she also serves the Leela, because she looks at the queens and she's so envious, and she said, "You're nothing." I'm translating into local vernacular. "You're nothing, Devaki. You're nothing, Rukmini. You're nothing, all the queens. You're nothing compared to those abari, those nomad," a low-class name for the gopis, forest girls. "You're nothing compared to those girls in the forest." And we know in the material world, if we're a bit sincere and pensive, if anyone points out our fault, or we're wrong, or we're less than others, our false ego, the bodily conception, the attachment of the consciousness to the body that's delimited to a particular type of identity, burns. They can't take it. That's why the hallmark of a Vaishnava shown by these queens is that they're non-envious. Nimatsaranam satam. The devotee is nimatsaranam satam. A devotee is without hate, without envy. Very qualification, though. And in fact, this is from the Bhāgavatām from my reading, and I quoted in my Monday morning greetings. A devotee must therefore be completely free from envy, especially for other devotees. To envy other devotees is a great offense, a Vaishnava aparad. A devotee who constantly engages in hearing and chanting Shravanam Kirtanam is certainly freed from the disease of envy, and thus he becomes eligible to go back home, back to Godhead. Envy, born of false ego, is the quality of the material world. Icha dvesha samutena dvandva mohena. We are born over in this world, overcome with the dualities of desire and hate. But in the spiritual world and in the hearts of the pure devotees, they don't have that conception. I just remember when, they don't have that conception. They don't have that conception. So, what do the queens, what do the Devaki, because she's saying, you don't have, to Devaki and the queens, you're nothing compared to the residents of Vrindavan. So again, what do the queens say? What does Devaki, his mother, who's there, say? And she said, yes, we're nothing. Because we performed austerities to get Krishna as our son. But Nanda Maharaj and Yasoda, they performed austerities to serve Krishna and come in this world and help Krishna in his mission. So we're nothing to them. And then the queens of Dwarka also say, We're not envious of Krishna, of those people. They're much better than us because we have so many social considerations that Krishna is our husband, and this is our etiquette, and these are our responsibilities. And we have duty, and we have obligation, and we have fear if we do things wrong. Of course, these are elements of that type of relationship. They don't diminish it. It's part of the way one serves in particular relationships. And that's also bhakti, to fear in a healthy way a reverent father, a reverent guru, in a healthy way. I don't want to disappoint. I hope I do something right. I hope that this meal is proper. I hope my mission was successful. But still, they met the queens. Rukmini said, yes, of course. The gopis gave up everything. And I always mention this, that when you take sannyas, you get another Diksha mantra. You get another, I guess we call them Gayatri mantras, but Gayatri is one of the mantras we get. And the sannyas mantra is the Gopi Bhava mantra. So why the Gopi Bhava? Because they are the ultimate renunciates. They gave up everything. So again, they gave up everything, Rukmini is saying. Everything. It is befitting, she says, that Krishna loves them more from us because we're obsessed with our religious duties, our social obligations, our children, our grandchildren, our home, household affairs. We are but his maidservants, worshiping with reverence like fallen souls. We married wives should not envy his exceptional love for the gopis. Rather, we should glorify that love, for it proves how subservient it is to his beloved devotees. We can hope to achieve the Supreme Personality of Godhead by many rigorous spiritual, and we can meditate him only by strictly training the attention of our hearts. But those gopis cherish such exceptional love that they easily attain the success of the most advanced stage of meditation, which is complete absorption. So here, and it's a beautiful story, literary technique, how many different ways we are being presented this to give us the right tattva and make us feel the right rasa, to have the right tattva, to have the right understanding, and to have the right feeling for it. And the preliminary understanding is essential for having the right feeling. Because if you don't understand the distinction between yourself and God, if you don't understand the distinction between God and matter, if you don't understand that you're not matter, how will you accept Krishna if you think he's material or you don't have the understanding? But the understanding is meant for the feeling. So reading this and hearing this, it's the way we get that feeling, which is the goal, prema pumarta mahan. The greatest wealth, the greatest value is having this love. And how do you get it? By the process of chanting and hearing. We have to hear Krishna's pastimes in the right way, from the right people, in the right association. Because this is what will give us what's in the heart. Not just the obligation, not just the duty, but actually the attraction. Spiritual life is internal. We have to develop some love, some feeling, not just some understanding. The understanding is preliminary and it's important, but we have to develop some feeling. And the way we develop feeling is to hear these pastimes, but to hear them, you have to understand them. Because if you misunderstand them, you'll be hearing something mundane. So now it's culminating in the end. And we've been on this, I think, for the last year or so. So it's kind of exciting. We're finishing the first book. Now, the ultimate explanation and the ultimate feeling of the superiority of the gopis will be presented now. Because there's one queen, Satyabhāma, and the other queens agreed, only Satyabhāma, a saha, unable to tolerate, māna, gehaṁ, in her anger. The other queens are okay. They're happy for Krishna because there's love for Krishna. But Satyabhāma has love, but in the flavor of ras, and this is very high stuff, that her contrary mood is her service to Krishna. And when we hear it, I was reading it, it does sound kind of mundane, that Krishna has a romantic life, and he enjoys particular types of love, but he doesn't enjoy it the way we enjoy it. It's part of his internal potency, and it's reflected in a perverted way here, but part of his internal potency, his spiritual potency, which has nothing to do with selfishness. God has the position of the supreme enjoyer to be the abode of universal love and welcoming, especially in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, for everyone else to enjoy it. So Uddhava said, the other queens all agreed, only Satyabhāma, unable to tolerate these words, entered her chamber. Sri Parikshit Uvacha, Simad Gopi Jana Prana, Nata Sakrodham Adishat, Sasamaniyatam Atra, Murka Raja Sutam Dratam. Sri Parikshit said, the blessed Lord of the life of the gopis then ordered angrily, bring here at once that daughter of the foolish king. Murka Raja Sutam, quickly. So that's Krishna. He likes that love. And I was reading something else in the Bhagavatam, that we can't separate our existence to enjoy two contradictory qualities. They clash, but in God they don't clash. He really becomes submissive and fearful of Satyabhāma. He really, at the same time, that's the wrong, but the example I was going to give it, he really feels the pains and anger of separation and simultaneously really feels the ecstasy of prema. He feels the agony and the ecstasy, and it's on a different platform. But he actually can relish two things separately at once. Well, we can. We're filled with duality. So it has to be separate. We're in ecstasy or in agony. We can't be in ecstasy and agony. So, in reference to Krishna, the epithet Shriman means endowed with the wealth of supreme love, or else possessing all beautiful splendor. He is the Lord of the life of the gopis, headed by Sri Radha, or alternatively, they are the rulers of his life. Therefore, when Satyabhāma, the daughter of Sātrājitī, showed displeasure at the glorification of the gopis, Krishna demanded she be brought before him for correction. And Krishna angrily reminded his devotees that this wife's father had been implicated in the scandal over the Samyataka jewel. there was murder or whatever, there was something. Shreshta vidagha vabhimana seva chaturyato nandiyatum chaturyato nandiyatam pravarta gopala nari ratalampitam tam vartaram anyanta vidagdatatyam. Satyabhāma, most expert in the arts of amorous love, vidagda or vidagdasu, was always ready to skillfully serve her husband in the mood of jealous pride, knowing him also to be fully conversant with the skills of love and eager to enjoy with the coward woman. So also, it's not that it's running on two parallel lines. She's consciously doing this for the pleasure of Krishna. I will. She's consciously doing this for the pleasure of Krishna, and at the same time, she's unconsciously doing it for the pleasure of Krishna. She actually has jealous pride. So this is just another way, and this will culminate the story in this very beautiful way, that somehow or other, because Satyabhāma, unlike the other queens, is abhimana, is jealous when, Lakshmi, have you read the Bṛhad-bhāgavatāmṛta? Parts of it. Amazing. Yes. Amazing. Krishna was brought to New Vrindavan because he was in a catatonic state in separation from the gopis. So the only way that Lord Brahma could revive him was take him to this replica of Vrindavan, and then he awakens, and he thinks that then it works, and there's statues and everything, and then he goes to the Arabian Sea, and he thinks it's the Jamuna. And then he sees the palace, and then he becomes confused. Well, maybe I am in Dwarka, but then he looks at his cowherd thing, and he can't understand what's going on. And then Balaram kind of tells him what happened, that they did this. So now he's going back to the palace, and if he's going back to the palace, the queens greet him, and the queens couldn't be in New Vrindavan. They had to be behind the trees because they ruined the ruse. But actually, they're very happy because they saw their husband manifest in a more full, loving way. So they're really happy. And even when Padmavati, which is Kamsa's wife, when she's like envious and she says, "You're nothing compared to these gopis," you would think that would, in the platform of false ego, that would be crushing. But they say no. Then Devaki says, we prayed to have Krishna as our son, right? But Nanda, they just wanted to serve him. So they're much more pure. We know they're much more pure. And then even the queen said, we have this married love and social obligations. But so what's happening, and I gave seminars on this, is that Sanatana Goswami in so many ways is presenting the glory of the gopis, and in presenting the glories of the gopis, giving us material to kind of relish that, because we're seeing. So now it's kind of culminating at the end of the first book. Then Satyabhāma, and by the way, I'm reading this from this Veda Ram, if you don't have the book that I gave you. So it's happening. Satyabhāma, she has this jealous pride. So now Krishna, it's kind of, your experience in these things. It's kind of like there's a red line, you tolerate so much abuse, but if you go over the red line, so this was the red line for Krishna. Satyabhāma, you try to have a little henpecked and everything, but now you're not appreciating the gopis, which are my pure devotees. So now Krishna's angry, and now through Krishna's own words, he will now glorify the gopis. So from all these standpoints, so now the explaining is she's expert in this type of love. And I'm explaining, and I read in Shastra that somehow there's these two parallel lines that can exist simultaneously in the spiritual world, of having different personalities of each person and even having different moods. And even Krishna is simultaneously mugdata, forgetful, and sarvagya, all-knowing. And it's not like he actually is forgetful and he actually is all-knowing, and it can be in the same person, and it serves different purposes. So that's what's happening with Satyabhāma. She's like expert. This is actually enjoyment for Krishna, but she's actually feeling that. She's not just, oh, this will give Krishna pleasure. She actually has that mood. So, dasibhyas tadrisham agyam tasya karnya vichakshana utaya marjayant yagyam tvarya tad-asahāviśat. Upon hearing this order from her maidservants, the intelligent Satyabhāma got up, bathed, and quickly came before Krishna. So then her maidservants or something like, boy, this is it. You stepped over the line. Krishna's furious. Mm-hmm. So now she's got purport. Satyabhāma is Krishna's very dear wife and would never act in such a way to disturb his mind. She makes a show of petulance because she knows what gives Krishna pleasure. Being at heart a great romantic, he enjoys affectionate quarrels with his beloved queens. Calming the anger of his wives is one of his favorite diversions. And moreover, he feels great satisfaction in glorifying the gopis of Vraj, including Chandravali and others. He is always eager to relish the sublime taste of their love. But why does Krishna take pleasure in the ignoble sport of struggling to subdue the pride of quarrelsome women? Because he is the topmost connoisseur of conjugal reciprocations. So these dealings give him unequal joy. And this is edited by Jayadvaita Maharaj. So, who I joke is like the Joe Friday of ISKCON, just the facts, just the facts. So, because I thought this is almost risque, this purport, right? So he wouldn't add or embellish or, he's just, the essence is there. It's just on this transcendental platform. So Krishna's in.
He's the original relationship counselor, right? Krishna.
Yeah.
He's telling us how to behave.
He's enjoying this. And it's just, and because I'm doing the 20th chapter of the CC, it says only the most fortunate will relish this. Because it's all these qualities that we equate in the material world coming from false ego and ignorance and pride, born of ecstatic love. So only the most fortunate will actually relish this. Stambe tardapya deham swam stita lajja bayanvita samlaksha prabhuna prokta samrabhaveshitasputam. She hid herself behind a pillar and stood there filled with shame and fear. Krishna noticed her and, still angry, spoke to her in a clear voice. Purport: although Satyabhāma hid herself so that Krishna could not see her, he smelled her unique fragrance and noticed subtle signs of her presence. So they're expansions of Radharani. So Radharani has the full capacity to give Krishna pleasure. And pleasure is love, but it's expressed through the senses. So there's this whole sensual aspect, but the consciousness is love. So they have so in other words, when Srimati Radharani has jewelry and like she's Mahabhav Sarup, she's the complete embodiment of love, because in the CC it's mentioned the essence of the Ladini Shakti, the pleasure potency, is love of Godhead. When that's heightened to its height, it's Mahabhav, and Radharani is Mahabhav Sarup. So she's the form of love. And it's described, even her jewels are made of that consciousness. Her embrace is how you will be pleased by this Krishna. So she manifests so many beautiful, including her fragrance. And it's described that Radharani's fragrance for the pleasure of Krishna is so powerful that she can be in a forest of land lotuses. I would assume land lotuses are, what is that flower? I think gardenias.
Gardenias or magnolias?
Magnolias. Magnolias. She's in a forest of magnolias, and Krishna's looking for her, and he's hundreds of feet away, and he smells her fragrance. And what he smells is, I love you, because the only reason she has fragrance is out of love for Krishna. So I guess Satyabhāma, she also has a unique fragrance. Satyabhāma often had fits of jealousy, but now she feared by showing her temper at unsuitable moments. She may have gone too far. The Supreme Lord's service should never be performed haphazardly, but always with careful attention to satisfy him with just what he wants at the time he wants. That's such a nice commentary on this, because she sometimes gets really angry, but now she said, it's not suitable and I've gone too far. So I love the commentary by Gopi Pradhan on it. So it's devotion is like this. You got to see what actually gives Krishna pleasure at what time.
And that's what purity does, right? It creates the ability to see what pleases Krishna. Because I was just reading about the holy Dham and everything that it manifests. The flowers, the fruits, the orchestration of the birds, the peacocks, and the kandamba tree, and the different birds, everything, the way the holy Dham manifests itself is because of purity of love for Krishna.
It is. I always use the term of the wind as the term vayana jushtam. Jushtam means serve. So I always, when I bring people to Vrindavan, I bring them to that place of the rotis, and before we get there in the field, I just tell them to close their eyes and hear the birds singing and feel the breezes, and just understand that the breezes in Vrindavan are not just blowing, but they're loving, and it's a difference. So the Supreme Lord said, O weak-minded Sātrājitī, just as you grew angry when Rukmini obtained special flavors like the parijata flower, now you are angry at our intense love for the people of Vraja. Silly woman, don't you know that I am ruled by their desires? So again, this is what the story is. As the height of it, it's trying to present, because at the very beginning, there was a word, and I've repeated many times, tasya paraṁ antim. The goal of this book and the goal of Narada Muni's journey is tasya paraṁ antim dasha, Dasha means stage. So Sanatana Goswami mission is to present this, and Sanatana Goswami in the story, his journey, paraṁ antim dasha, the condition or stage, paraṁ antim, of the end of the topmost thing, love. So now it's being presented through Krishna telling Satyabhāma. And also, it's also very important in tattva if you want to present something the highest, you have to present the competitors and say it's not. It's just like the Bhāgavatām. Etecham sakala pumsa, Krishna's tu Bhagavan. Krishna is the supreme. That's the theme of the Bhāgavatām. So there's Brahma Vimohan Leela. You see that Lord Brahma is bewildered. And then there's the story of Shiva, and the Shiva Dwara and the Vishnu Dwara, and Vishnu. And same thing in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. We're presenting the speciality of Lord Chaitanya. So Keshava Kashmiri, he was the Acharya of the Nimbarkas. And then you have the Ramanujas with South India with Venkatabhatta. Then you have the Tattvavadis. So it's always like that. If you want to present that this is the highest or this is the supreme thing, you have to present the other things, because people have. So it's so beautiful too that he's presenting the queens of Dwarka who have conjugal relationship with Krishna, and it's also spontaneous because of that love, but it's not with the force of freedom. And this is mentioned in the Ramananda Samvad when it describes the different gradations of love. Prabhupada describes them in terms of freedom. You know, how much the force of love can come out without any consideration. And when there's reverence, there are considerations of obligation, of duty, which makes the love appropriate. It's just like your son, right? If he wants to have the proper love for you, he has to be checked. There must be some, he doesn't have, if he wants to please you as my father, right? He doesn't have complete freedom in his expression. And that's appropriate for that love. So it's part of that love, but it's not forceful when it's like as something is intimate. So purport, displeased with Satyabhāma, Krishna remembers that her father had sometimes act foolishly. Thus he addresses as daughter of Sātrājitī and calls her weak-minded and silly. He refers to himself in the plural, either because he is thinking of Sri Balaram and Romini, who share his feelings for the Vrijvasi, because he is proud of himself for having the great treasure of the Vrajavasi's love. So he's saying, our intense love. So sometimes when you say are, referring to yourself, when you say, we don't like this, it could be that there's a group of people or because you have some kind of pride. So it could be either here, because Rukmini are there too, and Balaram. If the people of Vraja, now Krishna is expressing his own heart, and it's also right now he's going to resolve the dilemma that was brought up in the previous chapter of why, if he loves the residents of Vrindavan so much, he doesn't go back, because that was one of the puzzles. Because simultaneously, he's not going back, and everyone is telling him, why don't you go back? Balaram is on his case. Rohini is saying the residents are dying. And at the same time, Krishna is in incredible distress for their suffering, that he faints out of those feelings. So he's going to explain why he doesn't get back, just a little coming attractions. The reason is, there's many reasons, and Krishna is going to explain, their love is so deep that for him to bring them, it's like if someone's very, very sick, you don't bring him to health immediately. And you don't, immediately feed them a feast, You just bring them up slowly. It's a gradual process. So their separation from Krishna, which is the emblem of their love, is so deep that Krishna would have to bring them up slowly. And there'd become a point where they'd be in half consciousness. And as soon as they see Krishna in that half consciousness, if for a second they had the thought, maybe he'll leave again, they'll go into a deeper separation. Because it's the most intense. I look at this is God's love, so how intense is that? So their love of the gopis is a supreme love, so how intense is it, and how emotional it is. And when you're in an emotional condition, you're so sensitive. So even for a second, if they thought, maybe he'll leave again. So Krishna says, if the people of Vraj thought it good that I renounce everything, I promise you that in a moment I would do just that. Purport. If we take these words seriously, Krishna would not hesitate to abandon his wives, his children, and everyone else in Dwarka if that would make the Vrajvasis happy. But we should also take into account that a solemn vow is usually made only before someone in whom one has firm trust. And this means that Satyabhāma is also very dear to him. So this is all rasa. He loves the gopis, he loves Satyabhāma, and he's revealing his heart. And that's a very heavy thing, leaving your children out of a higher. And there's instances in history of people who took sannyas. But if it's done prematurely out of ego, it's very, very sinful. But there are, it's very, very rare. I mean, to take sannyas like that. I know one example was Narayan Maharaj. He had 2 daughters. And when this Madhusudana Maharaj, a disciple of Bhakti Siddhanta, came, and because he was Bengali, Narayan Maharaj didn't understand Bengali. So he initially preached him in English. Narayan Maharaj first started in English. And then, eventually he just left. But it has to be an incredibly high samskar. You can't even imagine someone doing that. And be so connected with Krishna that by serving Krishna, everything else would be resolved. But if you do it before that level, it's, you got to be very careful to transcend Dharma on the basis of transcendence, because if you're not transcendent, you'll just get the simple reaction. So. And
Prabhupada left at 59 with 4 kids, right?
Yeah, but he left when he was young. The praise offered by the Venerable Brahma was not spoken in vain. I can never repay these devotees, so I am utterly indebted to them. Now what I do is I give coming attractions, and I'll go back to verse 93 next week, but because it's hard to stop and not letting people know what's ahead. But even if for their pleasure I were to return to live with them, I don't see how that would help. Just by seeing me, they become so dazed and bewildered by ecstasies from deep within that they fail to recognize their own bodies and everything that has to do with their bodies, what to speak of the rest of the world. So their pain won't be relieved even if they see me. Their hearts will be so disturbed by thoughts of separation from me that whatever measures I take for their happiness will only double their grief. So it's just trying to communicate what is the love at the highest level of the residents of Vrindavan, an emotion. And our conception from the Tattatiya Upanishads is rasa vaisaha, that the ultimate reality is emotional. It's a feeling of love. And if it's God's love, then how intense it must be. And it's just trying to express this and give us an attraction for it so that one day we may experience a drop of it and actually understand it.
And that's why people who take the Mayavad philosophy, because they're so afraid of emotion, because Prabhupada mentions that in one purport in the Gita, they're fearful of emotion and relationship. So much pain comes from relationship. The highest expression of realization is intimate relationship, where you can be sad and weep and joyous, and that just freaks people out.
It freaks us out too. Well, just read one more. And when they cannot see me, they become so torn that the fire of separation leaves them sometimes as though dead and sometimes as though insane. Thus they partake of the nectar of wonderful ecstasies. If they see a patch of darkness resembling my complexion, they embrace and kiss it, mistaking it for me. What more can I describe? Therefore, my staying with them would be equal to my absence. Reeling this, I have not returned there. Now hear the real reason I married you. Okay, Jumanajaya, you usually start off if you're still there.
Hey, Krishna Maharaj.
Yeah.
Thank you for class, and thank you, Lakshmi, for your wonderful contributions. So good to see you, Haribol. Um, I was really struck by what you were saying about the understanding and the feeling. That
Yeah.
the understanding only comes so we can feel it, but we have to have the right understanding to feel properly. And I loved the flip of those two terms so much. That made me understand it.
We filter everything through our intelligence. That's why the Bhagavatam, there are 9 cantos before the 10th. Because if you misunderstand it, if your heart is not pure, then you'll see it as mundane. In other words, you won't see it for what it is because you have a misunderstanding. Or if you don't have the right understanding, you'll interpret it as mythological. So it's not, so you won't actually experience it. And that's why there's so much care to properly explain. And that's why Prabhupada's Krishna book is so good, because as his communication, seeing the way we're going to project on it, if he says something that he thinks we don't have the frame of reference to understand, then he explains it philosophically in the same text. Okay. Gail, you get your question, your quota, if you're there.
Oh, thank you, Maharaj, because I got a chock full today. So, when you first started talking about Satyabhama, you were, and in her mood of anger, you described her love as a flavor of rasa, but love is rasa, no? So why would you say that is the flavor of rasa?
I don't even remember saying that, so I'll just, rasa is a taste. Prabhupada describes it as mellows. So rasa is a taste.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll give you the transcript. You'll edit it.
Okay. Let me go to the next thing. What was risque about Jayabeta's presentation? Remember that part?
I was just saying that was the most risque description of the purport, you know what I'm saying, of conjugal love and Krishna's feelings. And I'm just saying it's so good that Gopi Pranadhana and Jayadvaita Maharaj is editing it, because you'll just get the facts, and the fact that it was so erotic, actually,
Yeah, I guess I'm not sure what part of the purport you were referring to.
Okay, I'll send you it. But
what in answer to her question is like, Haribol, Gail.
Hi, Krishna Lakshmi. So nice to see you.
Likewise. I was just thinking, what came to mind when you asked your question was, if you use a metaphor, like love is like a rainbow, right? So you have the word and the emotion and the action of love, but a rainbow is comprised of different elements, the red color, the yellow color, the blue color, etc. So, love has the different flavors which make it what it is, that heartfelt, deep emotion or emotional expression. And in that way, it's comprised of different flavors. And, the fact that the Goswamis have described it as such gives us a little insight about the richness, the texture, and the complexity of love and loving exchange with the Supreme.
Going to explain the risque part.
What's that? What'd she say?
No, I was answering her.
Yeah.
Love and rasa.
Okay.
Oh, the love and rasa.
Yeah, you have many more questions, so
but
you can call me up this week. You can call me up this week, and we can discuss.
Just one last, Maharaj. Just one last, real quick. Satyabhama was. You said that she was simultaneously, conscious of, her.
It was mentioned there in a purport that she had to control herself. So I think it's like that. You become spontaneous in a relationship, and you really feel things, and then your intelligence kicks in and just say, okay, I went too far now, So I think that's what happened with her. That was explained.
Oh,
But I'm saying that there were real feelings. There are real feelings she has. And for example, when the cowherd boys died on the bank of the Jamuna, when they drank the water, Krishna thought they died. He thought they died. And therefore, tears of compassion came from his eyes that revived them. But Krishna thought they died. So somehow it's a different realm where you can simultaneously have so many contradictory emotions and live in them, which we can't.
But
And
the one
and it can be
is the when the anger, especially coming from Krishna, I just have such a hard time, holding those two emotions in the same space. It's actually impossible for me to hold the anger and the love.
Impossible for Gail is not impossible for God.
Gotta try to remember that. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else like to say hello today?
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj, Tota Gopinath here.
Hey, Tota. Haribo.
Haribo.
Who else?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Ramatirtha.
Hey, Rama, say hello to Lakshmi.
Hare Krishna.
Haribo.
It's a very nice presentation. I like that forums appears in Janmashtami to get to the here last time is good for bringing us as somebody who mentors all day. Forget why. It helps. Thank you.
At least for me, your reception is not so good.
Let me try my Bluetooth.
It's breaking up.
Is that better now?
What?
It may be better now. Oh, sorry.
It's really broken up. I don't know why.
Okay.
It's fine to yours.
Oh, I hear you. Okay.
It's kind of broken. It's still broken. But Brahma, I'm going to contact you soon because I went to lunch here with somebody who's anyway here in Boca Raton, a businessman, and he's very interested in science, and he actually said that his uncle, he's Mishpuka too. His uncle was a renowned physicist. So I told him what you guys are doing. So I'll write you a letter. He really interested in the courses you give on consciousness and evolution and those type of things. I'll write you and put you in contact. You can give him that information.
Okay, I'll be in that because the world's the end of the so maybe I'm reading.
I can't hear you. I can't.
Okay, later.
Okay, Haribo. Anybody else like to say hello?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, this is Krishna-katha. Thank you so much for the class. I really admire that we can know.
Okay. That's also a little,
Only
that's
by
also
love.
a little difficult from Russia, a little hard. Okay, anybody else say hello?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for class.
Okay. See you guys soon. Okay, Haribo.
Hare
Krishna Maharaj.
Okay. All right. Yabit Sundari, Haribo.
Yeah, thank you very much for the class. Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay. Nice to see you. Who else?
Thank you.
Haribol Maharaj, thank you so much for class. How are you?
Good. Nice to see you on your rare day off.
Yes, I really like what you said about the love that we are, our love, the love we give, and people can know us by the love we give. So thank you very much for that.
That's who we are, right?
Right,
And that's
100%.
That's why our Abhideya, our means of realizing the absolute truth, is love, because you can only know a person by love.
Wonderful.
Love has to be given. You can't analyze it. Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay, Haribo. Okay, anybody else? Okay, I'm going to look at the names here, see everybody's
Thank you.
on.
Thank you for class, Maharaj. It's Yvette.
Yvette, nice to see you.
Thank you.
I'm going to take a second now just to look through the names, if anybody else wants to say hello. So I
Hare
see
Krishna Maharaj, this is Hemala Darada.
Hey, Haribo, nice that you're on. Great, great.
Thank you so much for class. I'm relishing this Bṛhad-bhāgavatāmṛta. Thank you, Maharaj, so
I know
much.
that. You always say that. That's great. Okay. Okay. We'll see you all soon. Vanchakopa Tribhuya Sakabis.